Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm present, bring this meeting to order as Assistant Planning Board. We have a couple of procedures I'd like to go through. Per the new broadcasting procedure, the call and number will no longer appear at the bottom of the screen. But what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to read it to you, and anybody that wishes to join us can call 978-10819, and you will be talking to Brian Dorrington, and he's the host of the show host of the meeting this evening, and he'll be able to set you up so that you have at the appropriate time. Thank you very much. On the agenda this evening, item A is the approval of the minutes of July 13th, 2020.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of July 13th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call. Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Frataglio?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, committee reports, administrative action. Any committee reports?
Not me.
Hearing none.
Me, sir.
Oh, thank you. Hearing none, we'll go to the Dpw Sidewalk Discussion. Mr. Hardeman. Thank you for joining us.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. I wanted to come in front of the board tonight to talk about the progress we're making on the sidewalks.
Good.
All right.
Can't hear that good, Kevin, at all.
No?
No, not hearing you, Kevin. Yes.
Is that better? Good. All right. So we've been working with a consultant to design a sidewalk on Shawsheen Street from Main Street down to Vale Street.
Kevin, we'll try again. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I was saying, we're looking to build about 2 miles of sidewalk along Shawsheen Street.
Right.
The current funding that the DPW has is about $325,000. I know the planning board has approximately $100,000 available in sidewalk funding, exclusive of the money that's required to be used on Main Street for certain projects. So I'm coming really to the board tonight to see if we'd be able to utilize that funding that the planning board has to help construct this sidewalk on Shawsheen Street. I estimate the total construction cost for the project is anywhere from $800,000 to $850,000 for the 2 miles of sidewalk that's needed. Now, that doesn't take into account, what's going to happen in the next few months with prices, if they go up, down, based on, the conditions we're experiencing right now with the coronavirus. So, the idea here is to phase the construction, do as much as we can in phases to get this done. My goal is to get it done in 2 phases. But again, it depends on the pricing we receive and the funding level we're at when we go out to bid. So the other thing I wanted to update the board on is the Easton Chandler intersection has been completed. We were able to utilize the sidewalk funding that the town had given us to expand the sidewalk network there. So, sidewalks now go from the ball fields at East Street, and you can walk on a sidewalk all the way to the library, all the way to Town Hall in the center. And I think that was a great improvement. And lastly, with our paving contract that we're working on now this season, we're going to be extending the sidewalk on South Street near Walgreens and bring that all the way down to Brown Street. So it's not a monumental project, but it helps fill in those missing pieces. And one of the most important things about constructing these sidewalks is not that it connects from one end to the other, it's that it connects the neighborhoods along the route. Shawsheen Street's a great example where you could have some side streets that don't have sidewalks, but don't necessarily need them because of the foot traffic. But once you get out on Shawsheen Street, you have a sidewalk that you can walk on to get to the next neighborhood over. So it really improves that neighborhood connectivity as well as the long corridor of sidewalk and pedestrian safety. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the board giving me the time to speak on this. And I'd like to see if the board has any questions, comments, or concerns.
And then just jump in there. I think that's a place to start, where you have center of town to East Street, to ball fields, and Shawsheen Street from Main Street all the way to East Street. That's fantastic. And for you to do it over a 2-year period based on funding, of course, that's monumental. Very good. Kevin. Board members, any questions? Mr. Battaglia.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Battaglia.
Thank you, Kevin, for the update. I did have a couple of questions. I guess one is going to be funding. I mean, we don't have enough money to complete the project as is, right?
Correct. We don't have enough funding. Right. With the planning board funding and the ability to move some funding around for things that we have, we're looking at around $475,000 that we'd be able to put towards this project. And I think that'll get us at least halfway there. It's a good start. I think it's much needed in this area. There's a lot of traffic. We were successfully able to just reduce the speed limits. So there's no more 40-mile-an-hour zones down on Shawsheen Street. They're down to 35, but still at 35 miles an hour, we'd like to provide those sidewalks to the pedestrians.
I agree. So another question I had, Kevin, what happened to the plans for sidewalks on Pleasant Street?
I'm not sure. We constructed Pleasant Street in 2018 from the high school all the way down to Whipple Road.
Okay. Any more plans for any more Pleasant Street to be done, or is that out of the plan?
I believe at that point, Pleasant Street has sidewalks along its entire length.
Okay. Well, good. All right. I know the school's coming up, and so I didn't know where we stood with that. So that's good. So in the plans, Kevin, I seen that you're going to remove and replace and reinstall mailboxes in that area, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So how's that going to work if someone has a defective mailbox? Who's going to be funding that or repairing that? Is that the owner's responsibility, or are there any funds in our system to do a generic mailbox for the entire Shawsheen Street area that needs it?
So what we've done, and we did it on Pleasant Street, was if there was a mailbox that was in really bad shape, that by the time we removed it, it was in such poor condition we couldn't reinstall it.
Yeah.
We actually would supply a new mailbox, and we would supply the standard, Home Depot pressure treated post, with the standard steel mailbox on top of it.
Sure. Okay. Good.
Minimum cost to the community, but it's a benefit to not only the homeowner but the project itself. It makes a better finished product.
Exactly. That was my plans and my idea is if we're going to go degree of improvements, we've got to go to the next step and get that resolved as well. And, you know, somebody has to do that. If not the homeowner, then the project itself, you know, and make it that much of a better project, you know, so. I'm glad you did it on Pleasant Street, and I wasn't aware of that, but hopefully we can do it on Shawsheen as well. So, so Kevin, when do you expect to start this project?
So we're hoping to start construction in the spring. And the reason being is, you know, we're still working through the final design. Typically on a project like this, we want to talk to every homeowner that the sidewalk is going to go in front of their house. And, you know, and that does take some time. You know, so that's our goal, is bid it out over this winter, get construction pricing, and then start construction in the spring.
Okay. So in essence, you're really going to be doing some crisscrossing of sidewalks on Shawsheen, correct?
When you mean crisscrossing from one side and then to the other?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Just because it, you know, the area lends itself to be on the west side down towards Main Street, but then with the sidewalks and Vale Street, you know, it lends itself to be on the other side of the road up in that area.
Sure.
Again, these are things we're still looking at as we work through the project.
Okay. You don't have any idea what it costs per foot for new sidewalks, do you? Or is there a ballpark figure?
So what we've done in town with vertical granite curbing and bituminous asphalt, it's about $75 a foot is the pricing we've received.
Okay. Because we need that figure as far as planning board members, when we have applicants come in looking to do sidewalks on one side, and what's the cost going to be per foot by the town, or whether they can do it by themselves cheaper. So, so that's a figure that we're using, $75 a foot, right?
Well, you know, when I've done the estimates for the planning board in the past, I really have to look at it on a project by project basis, because, you know, if an applicant's coming in, for example, and installing vertical granite curbing in a new subdivision and wants to waive the sidewalk on one side, well, that $75 a foot includes the vertical granite curbing, so that has to be removed from the estimate. So, you know, then you also have to look at how many handicap ramps, ADA ramps are needed, and things like that. You know, we use $75 a foot as a good budget for a project of this scope, but you know, when we're looking at providing an estimate for the planning board, we get really down into the nuts and bolts and really figure out what the cost for construction for the town would be for that particular sidewalk.
Okay, so that's, you give us a figure so we can relay it on to applicants when they come in to do that waiver, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, because that comes up a lot, you know, and it's going to be coming up tonight probably, and it's come up in the past. So we need some type of guidance from you if we can, you know. So.
Yes. Yep. And we'll, you know, when asked, we'll do a construction cost estimate for it.
Okay. Great. With that, Kevin, I'm all set. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Fratelli ran most of the questions I would have had. I mean, other than, you know, with all the things that are going on funding wise, you know, the likelihood of whether or not you're going to be, you know, we'll be able to get you know, the rest of the funding that's going to be needed to finish the whole thing, I guess, you know, kind of hangs out there. But I have no problem with the planning board kicking in, you know, what we have available to help the project for now. So otherwise,
Right.
I'm all set.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Delaney?
Yes, the one question I have is figuring the prevailing wage, that number, $75 a foot. Is that the prevailing wage that has to be paid with that
Yeah.
installation?
That estimate would include prevailing wage rates for the project. Yes.
Okay, so the thing is, when we get a price from a builder, he's not using a prevailing wage rate. So the price of his contract for a foot is a lot less if he installs them himself.
Correct. Typically, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. You know,
Yeah.
I'm all for the sidewalk project, and I hope it's I hope it's a success. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Mr. Ryder.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Hardeman. Obviously, costs are key these days. Understanding gravity, have you looked at, asphalt curbing, and what's your rough cost on that? And obviously, granite is much better, but outside of the center of town and off of Main Street, have you looked at that and to extend your costs to get more per linear foot? And also, that's question one. Also, question two is obviously you do have your sidewalk plan, and I'm continually asked this question: how do you determine what street is done next? I know you look at whether it's a school or whatnot in that, and in the fact why Shawsheen Street. There's not a school there. There's no park. There's no common space, open space. What made the DPW decide that Shawsheen Street was the next on the list? I understand Pleasant Street, within the schools and the open space and the high school, Chandler Street with the ball fields and library. But what significant item on Shawsheen Street has made that the next? And also, if we only have $500,000, wouldn't it be wise to do a street that only costs $500,000? And then when there are potential funding down the road, do the project? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Those are actually great questions. As far as the bituminous concrete curbing or asphalt curbing, that is something we would look at when we do the final design and cost estimate to see, how much further could we go if we used asphalt curb instead of vertical granite. And then the other real big implication is snowplows and snowplow damage to those asphalt berms. The vertical granite curbing lasts longer, it wears better, and it holds up better in the New England winters. But we definitely are going to look at this. Really, we're going to look at it fold. We're going to look at concrete sidewalks and vertical granite curbing, kind of the Cadillac, see what the cost will be for that. Then we substitute the concrete sidewalks with asphalt sidewalks and see what the reduction in cost is there. And then lastly, we would look at asphalt sidewalks and asphalt berm to see where we land with that as well. We want to get away from kind of just, doing things because it's the most inexpensive way to do it, and really look at the long-term benefit of a small additional cost per linear foot for a project like this. As I'm sure everyone on this call knows, Shawsheen Street's a very heavily traveled roadway, and I think it's something where we need to take that into consideration. And then the vertical granite curbing, the one thing I like about it is it provides a better barrier, a protective barrier between the roadway and the pedestrians. Aside from providing a 5-foot grass strip as a buffer, things like that. Vertical granite curbing really does protect the safety of the pedestrians better than other curbing that's out there. As far as the prioritization plan goes, the reason we undertook Easton Chandler first was we were able to get a complete streets grant for that project. The reason we're moving to Shawsheen Street next is during the workshops that we had and got public input, just about every group that showed up put Shawsheen Street as one of their highest priorities. And, really, we let the public kind of guide this process to the point where, we gathered their input. People were looking for sidewalks on Shawsheen Street because it does get all those neighborhoods out to Main Street. It does connect them to Oakdale Plaza and the Country Club and, other amenities and services that are along Main Street. As well as what I said earlier, where you're connecting neighborhood to neighborhood instead of just, walking around your street and the side street next to you. You can get out onto Shawsheen Street, go down to the next block, go in and walk around that neighborhood as well. And as I've seen quite a bit in driving around, there's a lot more foot traffic out there today. People are just wanting to get out and move around, knowing that there are restrictions in their lives that they don't have control over. This is one thing that they can do, to stay healthy and get out and kind of clear their head. So I hope that kind of answers your questions. If not, I'd be happy to add a little more information.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hardiman. Yeah, I do understand that, granite curbing obviously is the choice. But obviously New England Cape Cod curb is designed for snowplows. I'm not a big fan of the grass strip just because of maintenance. It tends to, every other house will maintain it. It becomes a maintenance nightmare for the town. I'm just concerned that, just because, one neighborhood versus another, I think the best approach to it is address for schools, and then you're able to get complete street funding where complete street would not be eligible within Shawsheen Street. You do not have a school, and they like a school park or an open space that links the two. I don't know. I know this is, I think we're just, if we only have $500,000 and we're looking at the planning board donating what money we have, I think the best approach would be to tie it in with a school where we can couple that money in so we can maintain one contiguous project and ultimately look for funding. There is currently a couple right now that the governor just put out due to COVID. I'm sure you're aware of that is going to be put out that's going to allow more side and walkability. Thank you.
Thank you.
You had some good answers. I like them. But I'm only one vote. But you said you had 350,000 and you're looking for 100, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not. Yeah. It's less than 500,000. So, Mrs. McGinty, Anna, do you have the total that we have in sidewalk account? You're not in the office, but.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. So I don't have a figure on me right now, but I can certainly provide it to the board the next meeting.
Okay, why don't we do this? If there are questions for Mr. Hardiman, and you want to give him the questions so that he can come back, we'll have our total figure, unless 100,000 is the figure, but surprised that it would be a round figure like that. And then that's not going to slow you down at all, will it?
Oh, not at all.
If we wait till next meeting. So why don't we do that? We'll get together. Anyone has any questions other than that? About funds? Obviously, we've spent some money. I imagine you've spent, how much money have you spent on these pre-design works?
So the design cost for this 2 miles of roadway for the sidewalks is $110,000 for the survey, the design, all the permitting that's going to be needed. So that's the cost for that design piece.
Kevin, how much have you spent of the 110 already?
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I don't have that figure in front of me now. But I would venture to guess we're probably $35,000 or $40,000 into it.
Okay, well, sounds like we've got to attack this problem and come up with a solution. So why don't we put this on the agenda for our next meeting on the 14th of September, unless anybody has any problems with that. And that will be at 7 o'clock.
Mr. Chair,
Is that all right with everybody? Yes.
I have a conflict that night. I wouldn't be available until 7:30. So if I could be put on at the end of the agenda, that would be helpful for myself.
You could be here. Why don't we'll put you in at 7:30.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
All right?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Anna.
there's
Yes.
also a meeting the following week on September 21st. So that's an option as well, but just to let you know.
7:30. I figured we'd do that. Is that all right?
So you
Is
want
that all right with
to
you?
carry on the 14th.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll put on the agenda.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Allen. We'll see you on the 14th, and we'll
Excellent.
have
Thank you very
the
much. I
proper
appreciate it.
figures. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 3, 970, 984 Main Street, approval not required plan. Who's
Mr. Chairman, I am.
Oh.
So, yes, so Steve Savick, Assistant Town Manager, representing the Town Manager. You have before you an A&R plan, which matches up with the plan that was presented with the special permit that was before the board. This plan, if I can share my screen. Just want to go through it real quick. There's no real surprises on it. Basically, with Mr. McDonald, we had talked about there was going to be lands exchanged between him and between the town. You can see on this plan here where the cursor is. This is the land that Mr. McDonald will be exchanging with the town, and the town will be giving up this slice here. Both of them are not buildable lots, but they comport with what the special permit was that was approved by the planning board for this project. So I don't know if the board has any questions on it.
Johnson. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, this is what we saw when we did the approval for the fund. Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, I have no questions. This is exactly what we saw when we had the fire station in before us, so this is just complying with that. So I'm all set.
Mr. Ryder.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Delaney.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Mr. Patalia.
All set, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, and then chair's all set. We have a motion.
A motion to endorse the A&R plan?
We have a second
Second.
on the motion. Second on. In favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Mr.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Laney,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sedgwick.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, real quick, if the board's interested in an update, the bid was awarded and we were $1 million under what our estimate was. And also they'll be starting probably later this week on clearing that site. So work is going to begin very shortly.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yep.
I meant to, before we continue, I meant to bring up the fact that we got word from Hilton Company Corporation that they would be starting the hotel at the corner of North and whatever the street is.
International.
I'm sorry?
International.
International, right. Thank you. And that should be shortly. So that's a good thing. It took a while to get this all up. Next item on the agenda. Subdivision rules and regulations. C. Is that yourself, Mr. Sadler?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this is a public hearing on the planning board's rules and regulations that we have brought forward, primarily staff. I would say that the town engineer, Kevin Hardiman, Brian Gilbert, DPW director, Anna McGinty, myself, and we also used the assistance of Mark Ginsberg, who obviously the board is aware has done a number of subdivisions both in Tewksbury and elsewhere. But we started probably in 2017 looking at the subdivision rules and regulations, and what we spent over the course of the last few years, probably meeting once every 2 months or so, looking section by section at the subdivision control or the subdivision rules and regulations to try and update it to our current procedures in town, and then also with current standards that are being used both at Mass DOT and with DEP. So just for everyone's benefit, the town originally accepted subdivision control back in 1948. The current subdivision rules and regulations we're operating off of were approved in 1998. And then in 2003, 2007, and 2008, we brought forward changes the planning board did, namely to implement, make some adjustments to the A&R submissions, the sidewalk waiver donation issue, and then also with digital data submission. So we have a number of changes. I think that the draft was provided to the board prior to your June 13th meeting. Not that I really want to belabor and go point by point on the recommended changes that we have here, but I can highlight very quickly because I know you still have items on your agenda, and we were a little bit behind with dropping the signal earlier. Just some of the significant changes when we look at section 5, which is the procedure for submission on subdivisions. We did make a change where originally it was a 0% increase in runoff shall be required of all drainage design to that we're looking for a demonstration of no increase in the peak rate of runoff and total volume of runoff of the proposed conditions. That's a little bit different than what developers have experienced and the private engineers, the design teams, but we think that it gets to a more truer depiction of what we face when the town takes over any type of drainage facility that's constructed as part of a subdivision. Also, we were suggesting that there be a change that structures, which would include dwellings and driveways, show up on these plans so that we can kind of get an idea of what the runoff would be from the subdivision and the individual parcels themselves. This proposed revision to the subdivision rules and regulations includes the central box unit, which the planning board has continued to see now because of the U.S. Postal Service looking for centralized box on subdivisions. We took tables 1 and 2 and moved them to an appendix, made some adjustments on single access dead end streets. The landscape center of cul-de-sacs, which a lot of subdivisions have come in and requested waivers from, we've actually removed that from the subdivision rules and regulations. So it's no longer a requirement of the board, but if a developer comes in and wants to put that in there, they would be allowed to. So instead of the board seeing it as a waiver, it would be in addition to the subdivision. I was listening earlier and Mr. Ryder was talking about the grass strips being something that, is difficult to maintain between sidewalks and the street. That's removed from these draft revisions that are being proposed, as well as switching from Cape Cod berm to actually a vertical granite curb for subdivisions. Monuments, we made some changes to that to allow for concrete monuments versus strictly the granite monuments. I'm sorry I'm running through this so quickly, but I'm trying to nail as much of it as possible. There was another section where curb radii at intersections would comply with the Massachusetts Comprehensive Fire Safety Code, which is an issue that keeps popping up, and we're looking to address that here. We actually have a list of items that would be required for closeout in the subdivision. We've moved the digital data submission to the appendix section and regrouped a number of items within the appendix section. So, I think Kevin Hardiman is still on the line and Brian Gilbert maybe also, but so if there's questions, hopefully they can help answer those questions. And again, if the board's not fully prepared to vote on this evening, we can take any questions you have and then get back to you prior to your next meeting or the one after that.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. And Mr. Hardiman, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Board members, Mr. Ryder, any questions?
I don't have any questions at this moment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Mr. Delaney.
I don't have any questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Patalia.
Looks like he needs to unmute.
Mr. Patalia?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I actually would like to table this if we could to our next meeting. Give us a little more time to look at it and go through it a little bit, but up to you.
No, it's good suggestion. Good suggestion. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't have anything to ask at this point. So if other people want to another meeting, that's fine with me, but I don't have any issues with what's presented. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Put this on the 14th. That's our next meeting. 7 o'clock. Is that all right, Anna?
Yep, that's available.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to double check. Is the town engineer available at that time?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Why don't we do that after the 7:30 meeting?
Correct.
Great, so I'll make that just 7:35 on the agenda.
Very good.
So
Thank you, Mr. McGinty.
I'll make a motion to continue that to 7:35 on September 14th.
Second.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second to the motion?
I second it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Almost, Mr. Delaney.
Aye.
Why don't we do it the other way? What's the pleasure of the board? You have the motion?
So moved.
Mr. Ryder? You'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, there was a motion made.
No,
by
but I thought I
Mr.
made a
Johnson,
motion to
seconded
continue
by
this to
myself.
7:35.
They're taking
I
up.
thought there was a second by Mr.
Mr. Patalia seconded on the motion. As seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Delaney,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Patalia,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Thank you. 7:00, we'll see you then. Next item on the agenda. 181 Pine Street. Continuation of a definitive subdivision, open space residential design. Continued from July 15th. Mr. Hammer?
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Matt Shawsheen with Landflex Engineering and Surveying, here representing Pine and Whipple LLC for a continued meeting for 181 Pine Street. We wanted this opportunity to let the board know that we're making headway with addressing the town engineer's outstanding comments. We've had numerous meetings with the town engineer and the fire department, pertaining to the project. We have sign off right now from the fire department. We're still working through some outstanding items with Kevin Hardiman related to his comments. And we wanted to, and we've also have received approval for, the lots in the rear with the Conservation Commission, which we had last week. And we wanted to, in incorporating some changes that we're going to be making to the plan, we wanted to make sure that we had all the comments from the planning board incorporated into those plans. And I know Mr. Ryder at the last meeting wanted to reserve his comments so he could look at the plans and get back to us at the next meeting. So we wanted to incorporate any concerns Mr. Ryder would have related to the project. I can say generally we've modified the drainage to be a more conventional drainage, deviating from the rain garden proposal that we had presented to the board before. Now we're going with a traditional 4-bay to a detention basin area design. And we've also widened the roadway from 20 feet to 22 feet in order to provide more access width coming off of Pine Street. So I can put it to the board. We're looking for some feedback since our last meeting so that, again, we can incorporate any comments we have into the next set of plans.
Well, let me ask you, this is for the board members and to you, Mr. Hammond, and I believe it also. Is this something that you feel would be more advantageous for all of us to get together to decide where it's ready for an up or down vote? Or do you think you could do it, some of it tonight and the rest in 2 weeks? 3 weeks, I guess. What's your pleasure, Mr. Hammer?
I didn't catch that. I only caught every other word.
Okay. My question to you is, do you think you and your group are ready to go this evening and then continue on the September 21st? Or would you rather get it all put together and come before us on the 21st with everything?
Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that all the plan changes have gone through the engineering department, as well as the waivers list updated, and we take care of these outstanding items prior to the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to let the public know we have 2 meetings in September. One's September 14th, and then one's the next week, which is September 21st. And I just want to, obviously, we haven't got any new applications for the September 14th meeting. So that one's completely empty besides the 2 items we already talked about tonight. So I don't know that.
Well, are you asking if Mr. Hammer would like to be here on the 14th or the 21st?
Yeah, that's those 2 options basically.
Right. What's your pleasure, Mr.
It would be the 14th, Mr. Fowler.
Okay. We have a motion to continue this
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Fowler.
7:10 on the, yes. Yes.
Mr. Fowler, just David Plunkett, just to get back to Mr. Hammer's initial request was that we get a certain amount of feedback. If we could get whatever feedback we have from the planning board tonight, especially in light of the fact that the last meeting, it was 5 of 11, and so there wasn't any real time for any feedback at that moment. And Mr. Radii had made an indication that he had comments that he would like to make. And we have been working, had some very extensive meetings, and we thank Mr. Sadwick and Mr. Hardiman and Ms. McGinty for taking part in working sessions during this interim period of time. But what we'd like to do is see if, in anticipation of the September 14th meeting, that we are able to have feedback or questions so we can make certain that we can address all concerns at that next meeting.
Very good, Mr. Plunkett, for that. I apologize for maybe jumping the gun, but it sounded like Mr. Hammer wanted to move this on, so that's fine. Mr. Ryder, you were ready to go at the last meeting, and you're ready to go now with questions.
I believe Mr. Ryder's not on the.
I don't see him either. Mr. Johnson, do you have any questions relative to this proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not so much that I have questions. I just, my packet includes a lot of outstanding issues still that just need answers, whether they're from Mr. Hardiman, that, he's satisfied and you guys have worked out what you need to work out. You got the letter in here from Mr. Sadwick making reference to the open space and the town's disinterest in being the one who takes it over. So I guess those are the things. They're not so much my questions. They're just outstanding questions on these issues that I think, need to be resolved before we get any further. The only other comment on any of this, and this really stems from our last packet that I wanted to make, or at least make comment on, is in our last packet, we had another one of those lengthy letters from the abutter to the property. And I mean, some of the questions that he had and things he's looking for, that's, they're certainly reasonable, that he's looking for, how does he go about the process and whatnot. But the one where he makes the comment that the board, has an issue with elderly people, I take issue with, and I'm sure the rest of the board members do as well. But I didn't want that to just slip by and end up in the record without any kind of comment. I think that was, I don't know of any time where we've ever either ignored, mistreated, or didn't give due respect to everyone who comes in, and in particular, seniors who might come before the board, whether it be online in this case, or when we had our meetings in person. And the implication that we do, I certainly take issue with, and I presume the other board members do as well. But otherwise, I'm also.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate that. And yes, that was in our last packet. I think it might have fallen by the wayside because at 11:05 we adjourned. 5 minutes of 11 we adjourned any further discussion. We're not really up to par on that. So I think we'll have to look at that ourselves, about previous package, and go along with what you're suggested anything yet, but the implication that we're not paying attention to the people that are asking these questions, and I think we all know that we do take serious any questions given to us. Mr. Delaney, any questions from you?
Yes, I have a few questions.
Go right ahead.
More so like on the waivers, you have to yield to the fire department. They do not always agree with the auto turn design of. In other words, when you look at the plan, they've used auto turn. The fire department doesn't always agree with the auto turn. So is there a way that we could get that addressed? Make sure the fire department is in agreement with it. Widening the street to 22 feet is a good idea, but I still think that you need the curbing of some kind to protect the people that are walking down the street. That's one of the things. And, to provide a barrier curbing between road and the pedestrian sidewalk. The next thing is, we talked about, I had a memo here from I think it was from Mr. Sadwick, referring to what took place at Winterberry Lane. Winterberry Lane, the homeowner ended up changing the swales and landscaping and so forth. I'd like to see something put into the homeowners association or something that can't happen here. because that's one of the most important parts of the drainage system to keep the water from going into 181 and 171 Pine Street. Just bear with me for a minute. Another thing is, does open space always have to be, given to the town? Can't the homeowners association deal with that, deal with the open space? I don't know. It's a question to everybody, actually. But the homeowners association could take care of the open space so that the town doesn't have to deal with it. I also think that it might be helpful if it goes to the homeowners, about the sidewalks that you were talking, that they were trying to talk about going on Whipple Road and on Pine Street. The homeowners association takes that particular item over. And I think that about covers, and the last thing is, the mailboxes are per the postmaster's recommendation anyway. So we'll deal with when the postmaster tells you where to put them, you got to put them there. So those are my questions. Those are my statements. And I'd like to see, some of it answered with the next meeting. Mr. Plunkett, the last time mentioned to me that it was written, they have written in before about changing the swale or the landscaping to make sure that the landscaping that the builder puts in stays that way because it's there for a reason. A homeowner can't just go change it.
Mr. Chairman, just in reference to Mr. Delaney's last comment, and I think we made the comment at the last meeting, is saying that was a point well taken, and that we could, in addition to any reference in the homeowners association, put language into each deed specifying that that the grantee acknowledges that there are certain conditions set forth in the plan is approved and that no changes can be made to it. So we could put that in the deed to bring to the attention, to make clear that when you acquire property, you're subject to the terms and conditions of the approval.
Okay, thank you very
Two
much.
things to you. Thank you, Mr. Delaney, for your shopping list of information. That's a joke. We're going to obviously make sure that it's done, and there will be all the design work. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Are you hearing me, Mr. Plunkett?
Mr. Chairman, it's kind of garbled. I'm catching words, but some words I don't catch.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's me or if it's the system.
Can I make one more statement, please?
Go right ahead.
Okay, we have a letter from the woman that lives across the street, 170 Pine Street. There's no construction and no building, and she says she's getting water in the yard. Is there a drain pipe or something that we should know about in operation? I don't know. I've got that letter here somewhere amongst all my stuff, but it was 170 Pine Street. And she says she's getting water in her driveway and there's no construction or anything going on that I could see there.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Let's do this. Mrs. McGinty, could you check to make sure that Mr. Hardeman has received that letter also? And if not, he can get a copy of it so he can possibly address the problem that is there post
Mr. Chairman,
before construction starts.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Hi, Mandela here. That letter from the neighbors, Kevin Hardeman already told the Conservation Committee that problem had nothing to do with, it was a broken town drainage pipe. And I think Kevin's still online. Maybe he could affirm the board. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kevin Harlan.
Yeah.
We have been in communication with that resident. Our highway division is looking into cleaning and jetting that pipe and addressing the drainage issue. So, you know, we are aware of that situation, and we are going to take care of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Andola and Mr. Hardeman. Thank you for your input. Mr. Delaney, you will all of your items.
Yes, I'm all set now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Ryder, we tried to get you first. Did you have some questions for this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. I could hear, but the distance was enough. I did hear Mr. Johnson. I will agree with him. There's some outstanding issues with DPW. I also am concerned about the auto turn that the fire department has not taken that in the past. I just would like that confirmed. But also, the biggest concern was the abutter, Mr. Hopkinson, and how's that? You know, I brought up in the past, I think it was 2 meetings ago, about the elevations, and you were going to look at the ability to address that concern. It seems that you've changed that rain garden to what seemed to be are you doing a 4-chamber? The connection was coming out a 4-chamber there instead of rain garden. Is that what you stated?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. That ultimately is not addressing the concern with Mr. Hopkinson. It's just another means of taking the water from that retention pond, if you want to call that. But there's still a potential based upon the grades of all the abutting properties down towards his parcel. Has that been addressed?
Yeah, so what we did, Mr. Ryder, if you'll notice, there's a low spot in the rear corner of his property adjacent to Lot 1.
Yeah, right around 128, 130.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did a test pit there and determined that we had some water that was perched at the surface temporarily in the spring. And we determined that the seasonal high groundwater was 2 feet below that grade. So what we did is we incorporated a wick drain there on Lot 1.
Okay.
At the low point there. So if there's any water that accumulates there, it'll get wicked down to the groundwater in that location. And that should alleviate any flooding issues pertaining to what's happening on the rear corner of his property.
Okay.
So that was a direct result of his concerns. We had a site walk out at the site. We conducted a soil test, of which Kevin Hardeman did witness with our soil scientist to determine the seasonal high groundwater in that location. And we specifically incorporated that mitigation measure for Mr. Hopkinson's concern there.
Okay. One thing I don't see on, I believe it's one of the sheets is what is that back corner elevation in comparison to Lot 1? You stop on the outside boundaries. It looks as if 128 runs across the back side of the property towards the front of his property. But what is the northeast corner grade on his property? That's not listed.
So the north east corner, the grade is at 128. And then I also want to point you to a swale that we're incorporating within a drainage easement on lot 1, so that any runoff coming off lot 1 that's not being captured by our drainage system will be captured by a swale to further alleviate any runoff that's currently going from this property onto Mr. Hopkinson's property.
Okay, what's the elevation of that swale in comparison to his property? Is it
That
at
swale's running at 130 down to 128.
Okay, now from pure mathematics, wouldn't it be best to drop that grade down if you can from 134, slope it down to 126, 127 to have a difference in elevation on property on lot 1 versus Mr. Hopkinson property that would ultimately go to that dry well, and you're ultimately eliminating any potential of an impact.
We could do that. We're working off of a rear grade in the back at that 132 to 134. So we're trying to work with those existing grades.
Well, I understand you're trying to work with those grades, trying to fit a house in there, but I don't think Mr. Hopkinson should have to worry about whether you're able to fit a specific size home in there. I think it's the responsibility of the developer to eliminate any potential of water entering his property. And if you have to, you can ultimately shift the angle of that parcel and still get your grades on that.
That's a good question.
I think it's the due diligence to look at that and do everything you possibly can to mitigate the potential of, especially where Mr. Hopkinson has numerous letters in regards to drainage out there and standing water in the springtime. And I think anything we can do to eliminate that, that's not only us as a board member to make sure that happens, but also as a good neighbor thing for the future owner of that parcel on lot 1. So there's a good neighbor there.
Yes, we can most certainly do that. That's what we've been doing with this plan, and we'll work on improving that grading there with that form swale.
Okay. I mean, I think if you can take that, Mr. Hopkinson will be happy. I'm pleased that you're going with a 4-chamber there. I think you're going to, from a maintenance standpoint, is significant. And I do like the fact that you're adjusting the road width. But also, I'm just concerned about all those outstanding items, that we make sure that those are addressed. And if you can address those concerns for the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Mr. Hammer, we're not you had a shopping list of things to work on. Are you confident that you're going to be able to have this completed by the 14th, which is 3 weeks from now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Fratalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a couple of comments that were already said. I want to reiterate to Mr. Hammer, and one is the postal service requirement. They are going to require you to put a CBU box there. They're not going to allow you to put mailboxes as per your plans that you have submitted to us on the April 10th plan. So you've got to put that in the plan somewhere where a mailbox, CBU box is going to be located. So, I don't know who you spoke to at the post office saying that they'll come out and do it later, but they're going to require that CBU box somewhere. That's just, that's how they do it. So, so if you can put that in the plan somewhere, then I think you're going to be better off.
Yeah, we most certainly can.
Okay. The other comment I have is, looking at the August 6th letter from you on the comments from Mr. Hardiman and so forth, and I highlight a number of them saying the DPW does not support this waiver request. 8.1-7, and then 8.1-8, we do not support this waiver request. You know, we as board members rely on Mr. Hardiman's expertise in a lot of cases, and when I read this stuff, I have to revert and go back to what he's saying and his support. So I'm hoping you can get these waivers resolved somehow where he's satisfied, because you know, I'm not very confident that we give a lot of waivers out to a lot of people, and when you come in front of us, not just yourself but other projects. So, and I'm hoping that you can design something here that without using waivers for the most part. It's a lot of waivers you're looking for in this project, but and other developers are doing the same thing. So you get to be a point where, you know, enough is enough. Develop it the way it's supposed to be according to the rules and regulations we have in place in Tewksbury. So if you can do that for the most part, then you're going to make me a proponent of this project. But hopefully you can. So just to be aware of what he's saying in a lot of these comments. So, but and with that, I'll close. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Hammer?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Yes, Mr. Johnson?
yes. Can I just ask one quick follow-up question off of Mr. Wright asked several or made a bunch of comments that had reference to that Mr. Hopkinson. The one thing that got left out is you guys said you had done more work on, and it sounded like you included him in it. So what I was wondering is, have you spoken with him, and is he okay now or not? From him, but that doesn't mean that he's on board. I was just trying to figure out if the things you've done have made him happy with what's going on or not.
What I can say is that we had a meeting with Mr. Hopkinson trying to work through these issues. I felt that Mr. Hopkinson was not happy with that meeting. And then we've been trying to work through these issues in light of that with the board, still addressing his concern, but through the board reviewing these. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and it's not the, you know, it's not the absolute complete happiness on his part that will determine whether or not the project does or doesn't go forward. I was just unclear from the way the conversation was going, whether or not at the end of whatever it was you just worked on, whether that had changed his position or some of his position on it at all, or if it's just that's what you've done to try to alleviate some of the concerns, but you know, that's just the work you guys have done. I was just unclear and was just looking for clarification. Oh.
Yeah, I just, you know, like I said, we had a site walk, we had a meeting, not appear that he was satisfied with any of the solutions that we were proposing. That meeting had ended, but we've still been working towards addressing his concerns through this process.
Okay. All right. I'm all set, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is Mr. Hopkinson on the phone or on video?
I believe we do have him here on the line.
Oh, am I talking to somebody or am I just on hold?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
I'm trying to listen to this stuff.
This,
What?
I'm not sure if it's just.
Mr. Hopkinson, whenever you're ready, you're on, Mr. Hopkinson.
moving around. Am I talking to the board right now?
You are, Mr. Hopkinson.
I am. Okay. The comment made if I was aware of stuff, and I haven't been aware at all until tonight. I'm still trying to follow what's actually going to happen on that northeast corner. It sounds like the water's going to come off your property, onto my property, and then onto your property again. I'd like to see some drawings or something like that. In the first meeting we had, it wasn't all my problems. I asked for guarantees they couldn't do it, and they got a party about it and did a whole bunch of other things. So I'm trying to work with people, but nobody's talked to me at all, okay? So I'd like to see in advance, before you people vote on it, what exactly is happening in that corner. Is that possible?
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond to that.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Hopkinson can contact the Community Development Department and we'll provide any current documents or plans that we have on file, and we can keep them up to date. So he can contact Community Development.
Thank you. Mr. Hopkinson, can you either receive these by mail or email, or can you pick them up?
Oh, yeah, I could pick them up. You get it to. Okay.
I apologize. I didn't get that. My question to you is, can you pick this information up from the board?
Okay, I'm just getting bits and pieces. What would you like to get? Hello? Okay.
You're not understanding me.
No, I'm not.
Mr. Chairman, if I may say a comment, if I could,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman? I think what's happening, Bob, is your comments are coming in mumbled a lot. So I don't think he's understanding what you're trying to say. So I think if we can get that resolved with telling him to go to the town hall and get his paperwork or copies of the reports, and he could do that. But your voice is not coming in clear, Bob, to a lot of people.
Your voice is probably breaking up. I hear bits and pieces of your voice. This is a heck of a meeting. But if I could pick some drawings up, and then what do I do with them besides reading them? Can I call back, or do you wait till the next meeting? Are you voting on this next meeting? Those are some of my questions. Okay, nothing's coming through. Nothing's coming through. I have other concerns too.
No one's speaking, Mr. Hopkinson.
Okay. So where do we go from here? You're going to supply some drawings for that northeast corner?
Mr. Chairman, if I may speak to Mr. Hopkinson.
Go ahead, Anna.
Mr. Hopkinson, I know Alex Lauder has been assisting with getting the most current documents, so please contact our office tomorrow morning and we can help you get a copy of all the documents.
Okay, this is what I think, if you can hear me. You're going to have some documents for me that I can pick up. With those documents also too, can you just give me some cuts on a whip frame and some calculations on that to handle any type of loss?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that second part about the calculations. I will just provide you a copy of what the board got as their packets. So everything that the planning board has, you'll get a copy of tomorrow during the day. So please give us a call so we can arrange a time for that.
Okay. What I was asking for is some cuts or some cross sections of the width drain, some calculations to see if the water can be handled by it. I'm not familiar with width drains, and I'd like to find out about it. Because what happens if this system fails when the whole subdivision's up? You know, what happens then?
I think that should be addressed by the consultant, Mr. Chairman.
All right, can the consultant do it?
So the stormwater report, which we'll get a copy of to Mr. Hopkinson, will have an operation and maintenance schedule for the drainage system in order for that system to be maintained so that it will be able to function as designed.
It'll be function as designed? Okay. Can I see an actual cut of it? What?
Yeah, we'll get a full copy of all the documents to you, Mr. Hopkinson, so that you can pick them up at the planning department.
Okay. Tell them about the department.
Which Hopkinson,
Okay, I can't understand.
Hopkinson, can you contact the planning board tomorrow? Good.
Okay.
You guys said now, Mr. Hopkinson?
Maybe the house on lot 1 is going to be moved a little bit. Still considered off the back of lot 1, 90 degrees to my 171 Pine Street. If you twist that clockwise, it actually helped the driveway. So I'd be anxious to see if that's included too.
Mr. Hopkinson, may I make a,
Yes.
is Mr. Powell, the chairman. Why don't you retrieve all of the information and then you can question Emma directly to the meeting on the 14th. We might have some answers for you, or you have your answers already.
All right, I'll get the information. That sounds good. Is the landscape plan going to be included?
Mr. Hammer?
Yes, we do show landscaping on the plan for the roadway. Each of the residential lots are traditional landscaping that you would find around a residential home. If that answers the question.
Okay, I'm picking up part of this. I'm assuming you're going to be.
Yes, we show a tree line on the drawing that identifies where the
Okay, I'm not picking up anything right now. Okay, I got it. Okay, I can't. I don't have anybody right now.
Mr. Hopkinson, all set to retrieve the information tomorrow?
Am I going to say again?
Are you going to the plan to get all the information?
What's some, I'll come up to.
I didn't get an answer, Mr. Hopkinson. Brian, what's he saying?
Mr. Chairman, he said that he will do that.
Okay, fine. That'll be great. You'll have the information. He comes back on the 14th.
Yes.
He asked me a question. What you saying? Mr. Chairman.
I'm not sure who's talking, but it's all garbled.
Yeah, he's reasonable. And before you go, a question of trees. Hello? Okay, I just
You're
hope to stop happening here.
Mr. Hopkinson, you're on. It's just no one's speaking.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about trees.
Continue.
Okay, I think you said continue. Talk about the trees. What are the town expenses to trees? The roots of the trees are going to be disturbed, and they want the tree taken down. It's town property. But what about the trees on property that are affected? Has any provisions been made for that?
We're not going to be taking down any of the trees on Mr. Hopkins' property. That's the question. I know that when Mr. Hopkins had met with us, he just insisted that we don't touch or do anything to disturb his property, which we will not.
I'm picking up every other word, I think. I'm just asking, what provisions, when you destroy somebody else's tree that's on private property, what provisions are being made?
Mr. Chairman, can I address that question? This is a subdivision of property owned by the applicant. We'll be dealing with the applicant's property. We're not going to be going on to Mr. Hopkinson's property or destroying any of his trees. If anything happens, there are specific rules about, someone has an action against somebody if they come and destroy somebody else's property. But that's not part of what we're doing here. No one's going to go on other property, and we're not going to destroy other people's property. That's not part of the plan. And, it's not part of the proposal before the board. There is absolutely nothing in the proposal before the board to indicate we're going to, go the bounds of our property onto Mr. Hopkinson's property and do something to his property. It's not an issue.
Thank you, Mr. King. Appreciate that. Sounds very reasonable. Mr. Hopkinson.
I can't hear anything that's happening, okay? Every other word is what I think I heard, there's no plans for anything. For example, the tree that the town's concerned about, part of that tree is on my property. Right next to it is another tree that's also going to be taken down. So what's the position for that tree or any other tree on my property? Now, the rain garden is going to be made, so something else is going to be put in its place. right near my property, there's a lot of trees involved, okay? Like 4 or 5. What provisions are made for my trees? The town's concerned, I'm concerned. And I know when the roots are cut, it takes a couple of years and the thing dies. So I'm just asking the board to ask the contractor what provisions are there for it. If you're saying there's none, then we should make some. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hammer, Mr. Randella?
All I can say is if Mr. Hopkinson's talking about trees along that are adjacent to our drainage system, there's very little grading that's going to be happening there that would affect his trees, meaning we're slightly filling and created a depression, so we will not be digging into the roots for that adjacent trees. And then in the rear, as well,
new structures going to be placed, and to see what trees are adjacent to that. But that's we can look at later. But right now, we're talking about a tree that's right next to the town tree. It's going to be about 4 or 5 inches. That can be handled. That tree's on the top.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know exactly who Mr. Hopkins is talking to.
Go ahead, Mr. Hammer.
Okay, you can, if you don't gather in this debate. Hello?
Mr. Hopkinson,
Yes, sir.
after you retrieve all of the information, any questions you might have of Mr. Hammer, you can address it directly to Mr. Hammer. It doesn't have to go through the board. That way, hopefully you'll be satisfied. If you're not satisfied, it appears to me you might not be, based on what you're saying tonight. I think you should hold off on your questions until you get all the information, and then you'll be able to address it on the 14th of September.
Okay, that sounds good.
So, Mr. Hopkinson? You all set on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Saying that I've set up a meeting with Mr. Hammer.
Okay. I think part of the problem, or at least part of the problem is I think I'm hearing or seeing it, is that we're getting bogged down in asking us for guarantees of things that we can't guarantee. Meaning, we could no more tell the petitioner to touch a tree on his property or tell them not to touch a tree on his property. That we don't have the power to do either of those two things. If they touch a tree that's on his property, then it's a problem between him and the petitioner. It's not a board issue. If we want to ask the petitioner to put up trees on their property as a buffer, that's one thing. But what we seem to be getting bogged down in here is what is that background?
When you destroy their tree, I'm right next to that tree. Why am I held at a lesser standard?
I'm not, Mr. Hopkinson, what you're not understanding is what I'm trying to say is that becomes a problem between you and the property owner next to you. That's not an issue for the planning board to have to deal with. You're asking us to give you a guarantee of something that hasn't happened on your property.
To make a sense of what's happening.
Oh my God.
You can shrug it off as the public, I have no consequence to the public.
Actually, no.
Help me out and find out what's going on.
Mr. Hopkinson, as I'm stating, the planning board has no more power to tell them to touch a tree on your property or to not touch a tree on your property. It becomes an issue between the two property owners if you have a problem.
How are you going to address the town requirement? The trees that the roots are going to be cut? Why?
I missed the question.
At all. town feel that the planning board is involved in that tree? Why do we feel it? I feel the same thing. I should be addressed the same way. If the town roots the trees that are adjacent to the structure that they're doing, which is the planning board, then you should help resolve it.
Again, I would disagree. If any of the board members disagree with me, please say so. But I don't see how the planning board has any power to deal with something on someone else's property, one, that hasn't even happened, and two, we can't give guarantees. Once this is done, it's no different than any other dispute between neighbors if something happens.
This is between neighbors. This is directly zoned from a planning board standpoint.
No, it's not.
How
But
is
it's
the
not.
planning board going to address the town tree?
Okay, again, I don't know how many more ways I can explain this. You're talking about something that, one, is not something that they're going to do. They're not going to touch a tree on your property. You're saying if something they do affects a tree on your property, how can the planning board possibly give you a guarantee for something like that? It isn't part of the planning board. That becomes an issue between the two property owners.
You know, the town's concerned about their tree. And the request is from the planning board, that's you people, to address it, okay? And then their solution is to cut the tree down and plant another tree. 5 or 6 inches from that tree that's got roots that are going to be cut is my tree.
I understand what you're saying, but again, the planning board can deal with something that has to do with the town of Tewksbury, but not on your property. Again, I think this is the part of the problem, is we have a paper here with a list of requests of guarantees from the planning board that the planning board cannot give. So we keep going round and round on them, and they're not something that the planning board can do. It's not in our power to give you guarantees on behalf of the petitioner's property. So all we can do is take the information that's provided. When the engineers and everybody else looks at it and tells us these numbers work, they say that X will or will not happen as a result of this development, there's no more that we can do. If it turns out that something happens down the road and there's water that comes onto your property from their property, that's not, we didn't ignore the numbers. We took the numbers that were given to us that said that wasn't going to happen. If it's wrong, then it becomes an issue between property owners. But it's not like we didn't look at it. We've had our engineers look at it, we have the consultants look at it, and we've had all these hearings to discuss it. But at some point, we have to accept the numbers that are given to us, because they're the numbers we're supposed to use.
Okay, what numbers do we have on the tree at the beginning of the...
I didn't catch any of that.
You're not addressing what I'm asking, that's all. And I wish you would. The town is due to take action on a tree. Right next to that tree, and basically, part of that tree that the town's concerned about is on my property. All right? So I'm asking you, what address are you going to do for the town? As a planning board. And I would request the same type of respect you give the town, you give to me. Because right next to that tree is my tree.
I'm still confused as how this, maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but the planning board could address a tree on town property, send that onto the next tree that's now on someone's private property. I don't know what else to say about it.
So the thing with this, the roots are all together.
How do you know that, first of all? Like, are you under the ground?
What are you going to do with the town tree? How is that town tree going to meet? You're going to split the tree down the middle, take care of the town, and you need to work with the abutter? Is that the town planning board decision?
Again, someone's going to have to explain to me what piece of a tree is being discussed that is not something that you guys should be touching that's on his property. Can someone explain that to me?
Mr. Johnson, I think your diagnosis of the problem is you're being accepted. So we can go round and round and round and round. I don't think it's time for us to go round and round.
You're right, Mr. Chairman. I apologize.
We've addressed it. What's that?
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I added to the problem. I apologize.
Mr. Hopkinson, this is what we're doing. You're going to pick up the plans. We're going to address it. If you have any questions, you can talk to Mr. Hamel. And Mr. Hamel you have to understand, when the engineer and the town engineer looks at it, this is done with the best engineering standards. And we all understand that. If you don't agree, that's something you can do down the road. If something happens, hopefully it won't. What we're going to do is accept this as accept this as it is today. We're going to meet again. We're going to meet on the 14th. We have board members. I'd like to have a Mr. Hopkinson, we're all set with you.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion, continue the hearing.
So second, Mr. Zagorski, you have a time?
Second.
On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do we have a time?
So it's at 7 o'clock.
Okay, 7.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we do have another call.
Okay.
Call.
All right, go right ahead.
You're on, caller.
Hi, it's Robin Whalen at 179. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Go right ahead.
I just have a couple of questions. I'll keep it short. Obviously, we're concerned with the, the water table and the flooding that we've had recently, and we are working with the engineering department. So they are going to fix the pipe. But I was curious with we wanted to get copies of the plan change, the design. And I was just curious as to why the change for the 4-bay design, now you're going with the 4-bay design instead of the garden design, I think it was, for the water. I'm sorry, I can't hear on my TV because it's muted, so I apologize.
Look, I think what you're saying, you're asking about the changes, and what we'll say to you, as we said to Mr. Hopkinson, you can go to the planning board, request the updated plans, and hopefully you can, after reviewing them, you will be satisfied that what the engineers for Mr. Andela and the town engineers have got together and come to a conclusion on how it will be best suited for everybody. Did you do that by getting the plans at the planning board?
I can get them. I actually had them emailed, so if it's helpful, I can actually have them emailed to me, and then I can give them to his stepson across the street, if that's helpful. I actually have his email. I was texting them, trying to let them know I can actually bring them across the street, if that's helpful.
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, Mrs. McGinty.
Yes, I believe we have digital copies. So what we'll do is please contact our office tomorrow, and we'll provide a copy of the complete packet the planning board got for this meeting. I believe we have everything digital, so please help coordinate with us tomorrow.
Okay.
Alex Latter is the main contact, and myself.
Okay, I can do that. That would be great. I can reach out to you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're in the middle of a vote, and I think we had a motion that was seconded, and we'll go through the vote again. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Mr. Delaney, Mr. Delaney, Mr. Fratalia,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Delaney,
Mr. Delaney, you're muted. Oh, my God.
well, I'm gonna take it as a yes, but, and the chair votes aye. Right now, it's 4-0. Doesn't matter. All right. Next order of business.
Thank you
Sorry,
very
Mr.
much.
Chairman, can you just
Ten
confirm the time?
Business.
Can you please confirm the time that motion was for? What on the agenda was at 7 o'clock?
It's 7 o'clock. Did you get that, Mrs. McGinty? 7
Okay,
o'clock.
7 o'clock. Yep. Great. Thank you.
Very good. You're welcome. It's like pulling teeth. I should be a dentist. Next item on the agenda, 1091 Main Street, Dean Graffio of Bad Boys LLC on behalf of Smitty's Liquors, signed special permit. And Mr. Doherty, I see you, and Mr. Graffio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, could waive the reading of the public hearing, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, motion to waive the reading of public notice.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I need a roll call vote on that, Mrs. McGinty.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Now, Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Fratalia,
Aye.
Mr. Delaney,
You have to say aye.
Board members.
just say that. Put your finger straight up.
Check the host can unmute him.
Hey, Jay, if you just put the space bar on your computer, that will help. Hold the space bar and talk. Okay.
See, look at that.
Did he run across the street and help him?
You're muted.
I don't know. I have no idea what's wrong.
Jay,
Okay,
you're
you're
on,
set.
Jay. There you go.
You're all set. You're on. Mr. Delaney,
Yes?
on the motion. Aye,
Yes.
just say aye.
Yeah, I'll say aye.
No, good. Motion,
Keep my lips. I have no idea what's wrong.
Mr. Graffio, who will be presenting the plan?
Oh, man.
So I'm here with my partner, John Doherty, and Brandon Curriers from representative from Barlow Signs, who's the vendor that's going to be installing our new sign. So basically, what we're looking for is a special sign permit. We have an existing pylon sign, and we're just looking to add a 3x6 electronic deck, deck electronic, double-sided electronic sign to our existing sign. And then we have our representative Brandon here that can answer any questions for the board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Graffio. Mr. Correa, as stated, I believe this board will have to issue a couple of variances. I'm looking for them now in my package. But anyway, why don't you just present the sign as submitted to us, and we'll go from.
Yes, so my name is Brian Currier. For the record, I'm in Merrimack, New Hampshire, and there's no one in my residence. So what we're looking to do here is add, as Mr. Graffio stated, a 3x6 double face Daktronics EMC to the existing liquor sign there. The existing sign had a square footage of 42.75, which was approved back in 1994. We're looking to increase by that 3x6, which increased by about 24 square feet, which brings us to 66.75 square feet. So we are here seeking your approval on what we've proposed here in front of you. This EMC itself will not have any animation. There'll be no scrolling, no flashing. It will not impede traffic or pedestrian traffic in the area. The EMC is also equipped with a light sensor, so at night it'll be self-regulating. So you will not have to worry about having very bright distractions. As noted in some of the communication from the police chief, reds and greens, he would like us to shy away from those. And that's what we're looking for right now.
I guess you lost me, Mr. Courier. My question to you is, what is the background typically in the letters, the color of the letters typically?
So the copy is all going to be the standard font, as Mr. Graffio and I have discussed. That these will just be specials, regular messages. The color will be the amber as it's illuminated, and so forth.
Amber letters and that.
Yes, that is correct. There'll be a black background.
Okay. All right. I apologize ahead of turn, but I wanted to make sure we're getting here.
Yes.
Mr. Patalia, any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
not
thank you
hearing
very
you.
much. You had a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
You're gonna put the sign, two signs, one on each side? How will you read the back side of the sign if it's gonna be mounted against the pole?
Yes. So the way that happens, it is two units that are backed up, sandwiched up against the pole. So that's how you achieve the double face look.
Okay. So it's gonna be two signs, one on the front and one on the back, correct?
That is correct. And the sides of the sign are wrapped so you don't see each individual board. So it looks like one continuous unit.
So it looks one unit rather than two attached.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So now what would you be doing for advertising on the sign? Just curious.
Mr. Graffio, I think would you be able to help him out there with an answer?
He's muted as well.
Sorry about that. So Vinny, yeah, Mr. Fatalia, we'll be looking just to like, it's good for marketing, like store hours on like holidays when people always call and ask like you're open on Christmas Day or what time you're open to on the 4th of July. Maybe some specials that we want to run, but it's just going to be more an informational marketing thing. Nothing hard, nothing, that's out of the ordinary, just basic stuff that we want to get out there on the message board.
Okay, specials, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, not even so much. Yeah, more like, like messages from the community maybe once in a while, or like I said, like, out of operation, like we halted our hours during this COVID-19 season. So we would get a lot of calls, or, we can put out there something like, we're delivering or curbside pickup now with just adjustments. It's a valuable tool for on the fly adjustments, especially like as we're seeing now during this pandemic, where we've changed our business model to some delivery, to some curbside pickup, reduced hours. So it's useful.
Okay. All right. I guess one other question I have is any way you can put the address of the Main Street address on the sign? 1091.
Are you looking to have that address on the front? Would that be would vinyl letters be acceptable for us to add just to the pylon pole cover?
Yeah, something on the sign that shows the address. We'd like to have them on new signs that come in somewhere, either below it somehow or attached somehow, just to show 1091.
Yep.
So when people drive by, they can see the number. So.
Is there a suggested size that you guys would request? Like a copy height?
Yeah, that's fine. That's all. All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fatalia. That was a good read on the Mr. Johnson.
I did.
Mr. Chair. So I guess a simpler way. So the adjacent property to yours has
I got
a sign
everything
that we
here.
approve.
Could be wrong.
And this one is going to operate basically in the same manner as the one next door in terms of coloring, in terms of messaging. Does that sound about right?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Johnson.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue. I mean, I'm probably the biggest proponent of these things to begin with, so I'm usually the easiest to deal with. Is this sign capable of doing more, or is this level of sign just able to do the black background and the amber lettering?
I can't hear it. Can't hear nothing.
I'm sorry?
No, that's Mr. Delaney. I think we can hear his voice, but he can't hear us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this board, kind of like we mentioned before, is a black background with amber copy to comply with all the local codes and ordinances that you guys have.
Right. That wasn't my question. My question was, is it capable of, or is that the style this is, that's all it can do?
I would have to double check, but I believe that it is.
Okay. All right. I'm all set otherwise. Thank you.
Those are speakers.
Mr. Chair, I'm all set. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Myler.
Thank you, Mr. Graff. You answered that. Vinny answered pretty much all of
Can
my
you hear me now?
questions. And, obviously Vinny addressed the sign, address on the sign, but other than that, I think you're basically mimicking what's on the Bernard Julia sign. And I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Mr. Delaney. Mr. Delaney.
Yeah.
What's this thing with the next over here?
They can hear me now.
Mr. Delaney. If you're talking, we're not hearing you. Can you hear us? Mr. Delaney, one time.
Bob, I think he can't hear us, but we can hear him.
No, I haven't heard anything yet.
So I just
Thank you,
double-checked. Sorry. Mr. Chair, I wanted to answer a question that I didn't have the answer for earlier. I just double-checked, and the board is capable of doing more than just amber. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Information. That's fine. Mrs. McGinty sent us a letter. Have you received it, Mr. Keller, Mr. Tapio? With a list of comments. Mr. Doherty, have you received the letter? Mr. Graffio, you can hear me?
I can hear you, but I didn't hear everything you said. Something about a letter.
Hi, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, a letter was issued. Yes, go right ahead.
And he did get a copy of it. The memo. Yes, he did.
The one you emailed me, Anna.
All the applicants get a copy of all my memos.
Okay, good. Okay. And there are two variances that will have to be issued. Is that correct, Mrs. McGinty?
So in terms of waivers, I've counted potentially 6 waivers that I've outlined in my memo, and I need the board to clearly identify what they want to waive.
Someone, all board members have a copy of this memo? If
Yes,
so,
the board has a copy of the memo.
Yes.
It's dated July 29th.
Right. Could we have a motion for a waiver on section 5253?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, was there anyone from the public that wanted to speak on this? Yeah. We're done with this.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Jason and Brian, have anybody on the line relative to this?
We have no callers, Mr. Chairman. We have no callers, Mr. Chairman.
Back to the board. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, before waivers, you should close the hearing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don. I was just.
Yes.
Make a
Motion to
motion,
close.
Mr. Chairman, to close the hearing. So moved.
So, go ahead. Second. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Mr. Patel,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Delaney. Mr. Ryder.
Aye.
Mr. Delaney. The chair votes aye. First, Mrs. McGinty.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Could you spell out, I know it's comment number 4, section 5253, but could you address so we can, someone can make a motion for the waiver?
Do you want me to outline what the waivers should be?
In general, yes, please.
Okay, and this is for the board to decide what these are the potential waivers. So my comment number 4, section 5253, that addresses the size of the sign. That section allows for the maximum limit is 60 square feet. And the proposed sign is 66.75 square feet. So either the board needs to decide to reduce the sign or to allow a waiver for that section.
Why is that not? Yeah.
Should I continue?
Okay, so it's registering here.
I get, Mr. Chairman, do we want to take these one at a time as Anna's going through? Or do you want to take them all as a whole, sir?
Motion for a waiver on comment number 4.
I'll make a motion to accept the waiver on section 5253A to allow the 66.75 square feet.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. On the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Mr. Patalia. Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Ryder.
Aye.
Mr. Delaney.
I think you're, that'll boot you out of the whole meeting.
Aye. Unanimous. The next waiver.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes, you just voted.
Thank you.
Mrs. McGinty.
Okay.
We have,
No, just
we
give me
have the,
So, the next one for address and comment number 5, section 5232. I don't know if someone wants to make a motion on this. They have information there, but in terms of number D, and then it's D point, it lists 1 through 10. So I'm just going to read through them first to explain it, and then I recommend you guys decide if you want to waive any of those. So the number 1 is the businesses utilizing the electric message board are located at a site of over 10 acres of land. This one needs to be waived. The buildings of the public entrance to the businesses are located at least 125 feet from the street. The dimensions of and that's number 2. Number 3, we're going to skip. 4 is the dimensions of the message board shall not be over 41 inches of height and 63.1 inches of width, which we talked about already with the the size, but that would need to be waived. Number 5 is the electronic board. Message board shall not be allowed in the town center overlay district. It is in the town center. And there's 2 more items. Number 7 is, this was not clear what you guys want to do, so you need to decide this. The electronic message board letters will be amber color only with a black background. What I heard from the conversation was it wasn't clear what you guys want to do. So, and number 8, any message must be displayed for a set period of time as determined by the planning board. I need the board to set a time limit. So those are the items listed there. So I think that's enough information, and you guys all have a copy of this memo to make a motion on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So before we start running through these, I think that the intent of the board is that this would be limited to the amber color and the black background. So we do not need to waive number 7.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll leave that one alone.
Right.
And then before we go through these, what amount of time do we want on the messages? I know originally we thought they needed to be longer, and since then we found out that that's not really necessary because it doesn't really affect traffic. So is it 30 seconds? Is it a minute? What do people want? Because that's not a waiver. We need to actually give a number for that.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I would ask Mr. Currier, from a obviously you're familiar with the sign. What is your experience the best to limit any type of distraction? Even though we've seen this has not been a problem, but what do you feel in the program should be the time frame on that?
So we've seen all different time limits all over the state and all over the Northeast. It really all boils down to what the speed limit is on that road, because you have what's called a chance view. So you don't want to have something that flashes by too quickly because you're not going to be able to get the message by. You also don't want something that's changing too rapid because you don't want it to be a distraction. I mean, cell phones themselves are already a distraction enough. Is that speed limit, is that 30 posted out front of there?
I think this is the Mr. Fowler. It was very concise and right on. I think that's the information we've received in the past, and not too long, and it is not too short. That's just, because of the speed limit and because of you don't want a distraction. That's your answer will be very good. So we need I'm not sure if we just need some direction on that. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I'm correct, 8 and 9 we'd actually deal with in the decision after the waivers, because we're not waiving 8 or 9. We're going to set a time when we do the motion for the actual, and then any conditions like the things about putting on the address and that kind of stuff are going to go there. We are going to do, if I'm correct, we do 1, 2, 4, 5 would all need to be waived. Does that everybody else agree that that's true?
I believe that's correct, Mr. Johnson. And then, as you stated, we'll need to, as part of the findings, we need to put in the other components, with the exception, including the number on the sign as well as the section 5253 for the square footage. Correct?
I thought we did that as a separate waiver, but we also
Okay.
have to waive the one in this one.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Do we need to re-include that in this one, or is that already done in the?
Yes. Yeah, no, that's number 4 on here. We have to do it here too.
Exactly. We have to do it in the original as well as in the 10 special requirements, I believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So my understanding then I'll just do it simpler. Make a motion to waive the requirements of section 5232D 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5,
Yep.
as was previously read.
Yep.
I think that covers it.
Second. I'll make a second on that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think number 3 would be. I think it should be 1, 2, 4, 5. Because 3 is
I'm
no
sorry, you're right.
interference with traffic patterns.
You're right. I'm sorry. I had an X next to that one. I shouldn't have included that. So I'll amend my motion for 1, 2, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I had a case checked by that. Okay. We have a motion on 1, 2, 5. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Fattalia?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you for
Mr.
that.
Chairman, can I ask a clarification question to Ms. McGinty, please?
Sure.
In her letter, it made reference to the setback for pre-existing signs, and basically this sign, or where it's placed, is grandfathered. By allowing the electronic sign on there, are we in any way affecting the grandfathering? And if so, do we need to grant some kind of a waiver now on top of that to fix the fact that we're undoing the grandfathering?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe so. How I read it is that that sign was pre-existing, and this is an addition to it. So I'm not aware of anything more complicated than that.
Okay, but I'll just make this statement, and just maybe as a polling issue for the board, then if it comes back from, say, the building inspector, that's an issue, can we agree that if the petitioner has to come back in, that we would have granted that if needed, and that they can bring it back as a non-substantial change if that's necessary?
I'm okay with that. I think, Mr. Chairman, if required by the building commissioner, that we do ask the petitioner doesn't have to come back in if necessary. We put that in the condition.
That's fine.
And if possible.
That's fine. Can we ask John, Ms. Carhat, would she go? She disappeared. Oh, she moved. John, have you discussed this with the building inspector already?
No, I haven't, but that shouldn't be an issue.
Like that. But fine, just to cover it, we'll accept what Mr. Ryder has said and Mr. Johnson. Is that all right? Go with the board?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could I ask you a question, potentially add a comment?
Yes.
So in regards to number 7, since this board does have the capability to do more than just amber with black background, is that something that can be discussed in further?
No. I think in the general message would be black background. With the American flag there on 4th of July or something else that is not those colors, that's accepted. That's what it means.
Okay.
If that's understood. All right. Questions on that or something else you'd like to say?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, if the applicant
Yes,
intends to
yes.
have letters that are not amber, I would suggest that the board raise it now.
Say that again, Dana.
So if the applicant intends in the future that they would like to have letters that aren't amber, I would suggest this would be a great time now to just waive it. It appears to me that that's something they would like to do.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I wouldn't, again, this is a little bit different because this is the town center. And, you know, when we did the one that was next door, we stuck with the amber, I mean, the black background and amber lettering, which, I mean, I know the town center itself with the town, they're not under our rules, but that's pretty much what they keep that board to in the middle of town as well. I'd rather, if they want to come back to something in the future because they want to do something different, bring it back to the board to ask for it, I'd be okay with it. If we waive that now, then it's opened up to an awful lot of other possibilities well beyond just an American flag on the 4th of July. I mean, I'm not sure anybody wants to get into trying to limit what we mean by what they can't do outside of the amber writing and the black background. Because once we open up that can of worms, they're pretty much free to do whatever with the sign.
I agree with you, Mr. Johnson. I would rather do two things. This permit should really mimic the permit to put a sign next door. That way there can be no us and the first petitioner and this petitioner. I would rather them both be addressed the same way. Does that sound all right to the board?
Yeah.
Sounds good to me,
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Good. Mr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mr. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Very good. That wasn't a vote, there was a session, and that's what's going to be part of the special permit. Mrs. McGinty, is there anything else to address on this?
Nope, Mr. Chairman,
Or the hours? How about the hours?
Mr. Chairman, you
Or
need,
the-
you need a motion on the approval.
I'm not approving it. I have a question. Is there, we discussed the hours of operation. That's 5. All right. All right, we have a motion for approval on this.
So moved. So moved.
Have a second? Do we have a second?
So wait, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I think
didn't-
we had some conditions first.
I didn't get to add those in, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to approve with the items waived as well as the additional number on the sign that Mr. Fratalia requested.
Eric, we also need the, how frequent the sign changes. We didn't finalize that issue, correct?
I think we're going to limit it to a minute.
I think that's what it was, right?
Minute. Yes, 1 minute.
So Mr. Chairman, should I read those out, or I think all of the items on the back that were waived, as well as the items on, that were waived in the 5253 for the size of the sign, as well as the time to be 1 minute on the display period, and to include the address for the property on the sign. The number for the
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ryder. We have a second.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Approved, opposed? Mr. Fratalia?
Aye.
Mr. Fratalia?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
aye.
And chair votes aye. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Graffio.
Mr. Graffio, Mr. Doherty, and Mr. Currier.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you very much for everybody's time, and have a great evening.
Very good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 2512 Main Street. That's been asked to be continued. Will that be continued to the 14th, Mrs. McGinty?
So are you asking when the next available time is?
Yeah. They say when they want to continue.
They didn't say which date, but I'm assuming the 14th. So the next time would be 7:05.
Sure. Very good. Thank you.
Make a motion to continue this hearing until 7:05.
Motion on that?
14.
Second.
Is that a motion, Mr. Johnson?
It was.
Yeah, and do we have a second?
Second.
On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, have it. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Fratalia,
Aye.
Mr. Delaney. Chair votes aye. The next item is Merrimack Meadow Lane, Silver Associates, care of Robert Cormier on behalf of Merrimack Meadows Condominium, signed special permit. Mr. Cormier.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to read the waiver, please.
Make a motion to waive the public reading.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Cormier, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Are you presenting this this evening?
Yes, I am.
Good, fine. Okay, go right ahead.
All right, my name's Bob Cormier. I'm a property manager for Silver Associates in Tewksbury, and Merrimack Meadows is one of the properties that we manage. It is off of River Road, 225 units multifamily. I've submitted some pictures of the current sign that was located in the middle of the entrance road at off of 9.5 feet back from River Road. Over the years, there's been several people that hit that sign requiring repairs, and also it was a concern for safety. Currently, Merrimack Meadows is repaving their roadways after almost over 30 years of existence. And they thought it would be a prudent time to look at that sign and move it out of the way and put it in a safer location. Have stone retaining walls on both sides of that entrance, and they would like to simply slide this sign over to the middle of the stone wall on the right, and the same distance setback from the street because that would center it on that wall for the appearance sake. They'd like to retain the granite sign as it is, the Merrimack Meadows sign, which is a little bit bigger than your requirements. And as far as the height, it would be a little bit higher than 4 feet because it would have shoes, pedestals to level it on that wall. The lighting would come from above as it does now, shine down on it. There's no problem with sight distance in that location. And that sign has been in existence for over 30 years without problems. So they'd just like to retain that sign and move it over to the side. Other than that, we'd like permission to do that and to obtain the waivers necessary to do that.
Oh, yeah. Board members, any questions? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no problem with the moving of the sign, but I am a little concerned with, since this started out with many people have hit it, I'm concerned about what happens now when it's not there for traffic of cars going in and going out. I would think at a bare minimum that that's going to have to be striped and marked, you know, with kind of a thick marking to show people where to go to the right, where to stay to the left, that kind of thing. But that would be the bare minimum. I feel almost like some sort of, you know, rumble strip would make more sense because, again, we're coming up on winter time again. You know, I'm sure it's due to start in 5 or 10 minutes. You know, and that line's going to disappear real quick once we start having, you know, snow and whatnot. And I'm just concerned about the cars, because you got a lot of cars that come in and out of there that people are going to start short turn, and you're going to start having, instead of people hitting a stone wall or a stone sign, hitting each other.
The board has mentioned that they're going to have the contractor put some rumble stones in there to replace where the pedestal was. So they're thinking like you.
All right, well, the only thing is, to me, I feel like we need to include whatever it's going to be in the motion when we grant this, or presuming that we grant this.
Well, I believe it's a stone rumble strip.
It's going to separate. So it would be good if we know what that is.
Yeah, I believe it's a stone rumble
Something
strip.
different than what you're talking about. So
yeah, it's not paint. It was a rumble strip they were talking about with stone.
That's, Mr. Cormier.
Are you actually saying
I understand what you're saying.
in the middle of it?
It's Steve, if they make a rumble there as big as the area that was taken up by this piece with the sign, would that be satisfactory?
Yeah, I was trying to get clarification. What he was describing made me think that they were going to put some sort of, you know, paved thing and then put stone in it, as opposed to just doing a rumble strip. That's why I was a little confused, because he keeps saying stone, and stone to me makes it sound like something that's going to be dumped into something.
Rumble strip?
No.
I'm sorry.
It's my understanding sometimes it's paver stone that's level with the asphalt. It would be a different texture than the asphalt that they would notice.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm fine if we, you know, it has to be at least the same size as the footprint of the existing sign.
Right.
But otherwise, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay, I'm all set.
That's good. And Steve has understood that it's going to be not stone, but when we make the rumbles in the concrete.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I would want to see anyway.
Is that all right, Mr. Cormier?
Yeah, it's a paver level with the asphalt, but it's going to be a different texture. A paver stone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Mr. Radii, do you have any questions?
Yeah, one thing, Mr. Cormier, will this sign be illuminated as well?
Yes, I did mention that. It's going to be lit from above as it is now, shining down on the sign.
Okay, shining down, so you're not affecting that home on the corner where this is.
Oh, no.
Okay, okay,
If you look at the existing picture, you'll see the type of lighting it is.
okay. So it's the same lighting that's there.
Correct.
Okay. Other than that, I agree with Mr. Johnson. My opinion would be to do a concrete shaped rumble strip. That way the pavers are not going to be popped out in the wintertime. You'll get the longevity and eliminate just paving over it. And I would like to put that in as a requirement with the relocation of the sign that it has to be a permanent feature.
Well, if that's what you feel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Fine, thank you, Mr. Ryder. I agree. Thank you. Mr. Faria.
Mr. Cormier, is any possibility of putting the address of the site near the sign?
I'm not sure there's a specific address. Each unit has their own address, 1 through 224 Merrimack Meadows Lane, I believe.
Okay. I'm just thinking if you're driving down, you mean if there's no particular address on it, we'd like to have an address somewhere on site so people can know where they are or what the number is, but.
Well, inside the site, we have many signs for each neighborhood as to what numbers are in those neighborhoods.
Okay.
Units 1 to 20, 30 to 60, or whatever. So it is well marked within the development.
Okay. So what's Merrimack Meadows Lane is the actual address?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Delaney.
I'm all set with it, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. The chair is all set. So the only, we need being this is a I would call it a grandfathered sign. Do we have to the size and the height? What's the pleasure of the board?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I just say something?
Go right ahead.
So I didn't interpret it as a grandfather sign since they're moving it. But, you know, the building commissioner might interpret that differently than me.
All right. So we need a waiver on the height and a waiver on the size. Is that correct?
And the setback.
So Mr. Chairman, I didn't see where the waiver for the height is needed. Can the applicant point to the section that he's referring to? I saw those two, section 5253 and section 5244 require waivers.
I was just given a set of site development standards, which is numbered differently. And in there, it indicated there was under resident district 627. This is under site development standards. There was a mention of freestanding, in which case they may not exceed 4 feet in height. That's where I'm pulling it from. Now, whether that's something different than zoning, maybe that doesn't apply for your waivers.
627, was that the Tewksbury zoning bylaw?
No, site development standards, so it's something different.
Yeah, this is we're waiving the zoning bylaws here.
Okay.
So I believe 5253 would incorporate, 5244 includes height in that. So we should be covered when we're doing a waiver for that. Unless I'm mistaken, but that's the way I've read it, so.
Mr. Johnson. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I apologize, but did we do the public comment part?
Oh, boy.
I apologize.
Is there anybody? Yeah. Brian, is there anyone on the phone for this?
We have no callers, Mr. Chairman.
Right, then,
Well,
Mr.
thank you very much.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Very good. On the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mr. Fratelli?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Mr. Delaney? Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mr. Johnson, do you have a motion?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to grant the waiver for section 5253 in order to allow the setback of 9.5 feet, which does not meet the 15 feet requirement.
Do we have a second? On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fratelli?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Delaney?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Was there a second one? Waiver?
So I'll make a motion to grant, I'll make a motion to grant the waiver for 5254 that the sign not exceed 12 square feet and allow this sign to be 13.5 square feet.
It's 5244, Stephen.
Oh, whatever, I'm sorry if I misspoke, 5244.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
May seconded.
On the motion. Motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Mr. Fratelli?
Aye.
Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Thank you. Chair votes. We have a motion for approval of sign special permit for Merrimack Meadow Lane.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the sign special permit as requested, with the conditions that the spot where the sign is being moved from will have place put, I'm sorry, Mr. Ryder, what was it you asked for?
I just would like the rumble strip to be in concrete. Just because the pavers are going to get pulled up in the winter, Mr. Johnson, I think, and we put that as part of the condition, so that stays there in long.
So with that type of rumble strip in, and it needs to be at least the same size as the footprint of the sign being removed. I would also ask, though, that the board retain the right that if it turns out it's something larger, because there are issues going forward, we retain the right to request that they make the rumble strip larger in the future. Obviously, we have no idea how this is going to work, but I think it'll hopefully be fine with the footprint that's there. But if it turns out that now that it's ground level, it needs to be a little bit bigger, we should probably hold on to the right to request that in the future.
A question.
Yep.
I just couldn't
Oh, I'm sorry.
understand what Mr. Ryder said for the type of rumble strip. I couldn't understand that. It didn't come through.
Sorry, Anna, that would concrete.
Okay,
Concrete rumble strip. Yes. Sorry about that.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. On the motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. The ayes have it. Mr.
Aye.
Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Delaney,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Cormier.
Thank you all.
180, on the agenda, 180 Pond Street, Ginsburg Realty Trust, Ginsburg Realty LLC,
Motion to
and
waive the public reading.
disturbance permit. I'm sorry?
Motion to waive the public reading.
Second.
This is being,
It is?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, this is the first hearing for it.
sorry?
This is the first hearing for, so we do need to open the meeting and waive the reading.
Um,
I thought it was being continued.
No, it's the first meeting for it.
So we're gonna open it and continue it.
We're gonna open it and,
Open and continue it, yeah.
right. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Delaney, Mr. Patalia.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Anna. Motion, this is continued until what time? Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, the next available time is 7:10 on September 14th.
Good. Motion to continue.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the ayes. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Bill,
Aye.
Mr. Patalia.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Next order of business, old business. Any old business to discuss? Yeah. No new business. We have a letter from Kevin Harlan. Oh, I'm sorry. We have correspondence.
So I don't know if you said new business, Mr. Chairman, but I can go to correspondence if you like.
Well, we all have the information. But if you have anything you'd like to add to make a smoother transition here.
So I'm just going to sign correspondence if you would like the town planners report at the same time.
Yes.
Okay. So for the town planners report, just for the record, for 725 Main Street, I spoke with the consultant, Mr. Kuko, to address the riprap. Your memo has the details of that. I'm asking for 2 items for direction on. The riprap next to the wetlands, off of Main Street. The applicant, the consultant, their intention was to address that either as the as-built, or if there's a direction from the planning board, I can communicate that to them. The second piece is the riprap that was not installed on the corner of Jerome Road and Main Street. That was not installed. So I need to know from the board if they would like that to be installed or if they would like that to be addressed in the as-built, which that is submitted. So we can talk about that now if you like.
Mr. Chairman, this is something I asked Anna to look at. This was something I requested when we did council. I believe you and I spoke about this. The state had put in riprap, and then we requested a riprap swale on the northern portion of the property along the parcel out to Main Street to take the overflow where they did not carry sidewalk all the way down past the parcel. I think this is something that's necessary once we get into the spring season. Thank you.
All right. Anna, have you discussed this with, well, you did, you spoke to Dpw. Do they feel that this today, or is that the opinion that Mr. Ryder?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Chairman?
Okay. My question is, when you talk to Mr. Kuko, does his opinion and Mr. Ryder's opinion conflict?
So, Mr. Ryder, you would like to see installed, correct?
Yes, this was part of the discussion on the abutment of the wetlands that we did not put it in the actual permit. It was discussed that this was going to put in, and Mr. Kuko at the time stated it would not be an issue. I feel that it is going to benefit any potential ponding at that location just past the section of the sidewalk that was installed as part of the project.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to speak for the applicant, for the property owner. I would suggest that they would come in and speak to this themselves. It's not my place to give an opinion. So I can request the property owners come in and discuss this with the board at the next meeting.
That's fine.
As an initiative item. I just want to know if the board was willing to.
Mr. Chairman, can we do that
when
for
they
both?
submit the as-built or not.
Mr. Chairman, can we do that for both?
Yeah. Mr. Johnson?
No, I was just saying, we make sure that they're coming in to discuss both to make a decision. Not on either thing, we'll just deal with it all at once.
That's good. Can we have a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion, in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the ayes have it. Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Fratalia? Fratalia?
We're still
You
muted.
say an aye.
Still talking.
Many years.
Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
Delaney?
Aye.
Mr. Let me see your lips so I can tell you're talking.
Aye.
Mr. Delaney. Thank you.
Aye.
Sorry. You had Woburn Street.
Yeah, so for the record, 95 Highland Ave, Woburn Street, we received a complaint a number of months ago when the coronavirus pandemic hit. And this was a follow-up from a complaint in September regarding trucks parking on the street. You have a copy of the letter outlining the concerns in your correspondence packet. And I want to report that the property owner is working with the town, myself, to address these issues. I'll report back when it's resolved. I'll just go through the other ones, and then it would be best. 937 North Street, the Hilton Hotel, they plan to do construction, and then 7th Street, our department was contacted by the property owner to install those 2 signs that are missing. And then the last one I have for an update is.
I'm sorry, Ms. McGinty, can I just talk to you about that one for just a second?
Sure. Yep.
So the 1768, that was the one I had actually, I'm the one who called into that one. Well, I can't say that I can necessarily understand that they can't get fine signs due to the pandemic. They're not trying to say that they can't paint the arrows on the pandemic as well, are they?
So the call came in when I was on vacation, so I didn't actually speak with the property owner.
So I guess what I really mean is, could we please call him and say that it would be really, really surprising to the board if due to the pandemic, they can't paint 2 giant yellow arrows on the ground? Trying to select a couple of signs.
Follow up with them and confirm. The voicemail message I got passed on to me said that the signs were delayed, but they are addressing the issue. So I'll have to clarify with Alex Lather on terms of the specifics with that.
Someone's going to get there soon.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
People are going in and out in both directions. I said someone's going to get hurt there soon because people are going in and out of both of those entrances, exits in both directions.
So can
not
the
using them the
board,
one way that.
Yeah, can the board set a deadline so I can communicate that to the property owner? Get this completed by?
I mean, I don't know what other people would feel, but I would think by the end of the month they should be able to paint 2 giant yellow arrows on the ground, even if they can't track down a couple of signs.
I agree.
Mrs. McGinty. Anna, would you like us to motion that to support you in this conversation with Mr. Orbit?
Yes, that would be very helpful.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter to the abutter, to the property owner.
No.
Stating that the planning board expects that the 2 large out only arrows, in only arrows be painted on the ground no later than the end of the month, and that the board's expectation that the 2 signs that need to be replaced will be done as quickly as possible. I don't want to set a time on that because maybe they really are having some issues, but I think the painting could be done by the end of the month.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ryder?
Aye.
Mr. Patalia?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, gentlemen. I believe. Anything else, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have one thing, and then a positive
Yes.
note. So I just received a email from a resident who said they have gone to Circle Health to get testing done,
Yeah. No.
and that it's been a very positive experience. And going in and out was very easy. They were following the traffic flow, etc. So that's been operating well according to that one resident for Circle Health.
I'm not sure what to say about that because this came before us. We made a decision. If the board does not want to have that continue, what could we do to make everybody happy? This is the problem, isn't it?
It's no problem. They were just saying that it's been a positive experience. I just wanted to share that with the board, so there wasn't an issue. Mr. Chairman.
I thought I read a letter where there was a problem.
It's a good thing. So.
Oh, that's good.
Just share
That's
that.
an emotion.
Yeah, there's no problem.
Okay, let's have a motion then.
No motion.
No motion.
It's just I'm just passing along information. So that's it. So that's all I
Somehow-
have for tonight.
Thank you for that. But I remember a letter where someone was complaining about it.
No, this
Maybe
isn't-
maybe I dreamt it.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a request?
I'm happy with that.
all
I'm sorry.
Is it possible for us to move this town planners report into the administrative items in the beginning of the meeting?
Sure, I think that's okay.
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. I don't think we need a motion on that. So.
Okay. If there's nothing else, please tell me.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment if I could.
Go right ahead.
Well, this meeting tonight is not indicative of how we operate on a regular basis. This WebEx thing that we have going on is ridiculous. We gotta change the system we have going on here because nobody can hear our communications. No one's audible. Nobody can hear any stuff that goes on here. It's ridiculous. It's got to be changed somehow. I would even rather meet in person and do a 6 foot separation in town hall if we have to get this resolved and cleared up so we can talk about things in a clear and concise manner. People cannot hear us on the TV. People are not getting the information correctly to them. And it's just not right. I don't know how.
That's correct.
Feels.
You're absolutely right.
Ridiculous.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Mr. Fratelli, I'll tell you, I had a conversation with Mr. Sadwick before our last meeting. And I asked him, are we going to be able to meet face to face? And he said that he didn't think so. And I said, why not? And he said, well, you're not sure the 6 foot area. And we discussed it, looked at it, and we could. So then he brought up the fact that we never know who's going to come to a meeting as an interested party. Never mind the interested party, but we would have to make sure that anybody that came in as a proponent would have to separate themselves and only be, 3 people. But when the people come in, they could come into the audience and stagger. We could separate the chairs, and so that you could have probably 6 or 8 people interested party on each petitioned item. Then the question But what happens if someone else wanted to come in just to listen? Well, we'd have to tell them they can't. They're come in for 1091 Main Street or 2512 Main Street. You have to wait out in the corridor, and we would put chairs out there for them to wait. When it came time for the people to come in, we would at that time, and then the people that were in there would have to leave. We would have to be a governing party, and I thought we handled it. I guess the party don't agree, Mr. Johnson.
I'm sorry. I just, for one, well, I mean, obviously tonight was a complete disaster, but that hasn't been for most of these meetings. I mean, they haven't all been like that. Most of them have gone pretty well, and we haven't had technical issues at all. I'm a little leery of telling people that they have to come into the town hall now. Like, if petitioners don't want to come in there, now what's the option now? Because if we're physically in town hall and they don't feel comfortable coming in, now they can't have a hearing because the only place to do it now is in person. And now we're also going to have the issue of people are probably going to have masks on, which isn't going to make hearing anybody any easier. I don't know. I don't know who else is doing meetings like that. I mean, I understand that tonight was not good, but I'm leery of trying to force everybody into in-person meetings when that's not anybody else's norm. And I don't think any of the other boards are doing it that way in town. I don't know. I worry about what that forces people to have to decide. They either don't get to come have a hearing or they have to come in. And now we're bringing a lot of people into a room from who knows where and whoever they've been.
Steve, Mr. Johnson, I agree, Stephen. My only question is, this isn't working. We've been dealing with these problems this much. Nothing new, nothing against Brian, nothing against the staff that does it, but this WebEx thing is not working. If we have to go to another format, Zoom or meet or some other meeting format, then fine. We've been 3.5 hours doing this planning board stuff. None of the other boards meet this long. None of the other boards have presentations like we have. So I disagree with something something's got to be done. So I don't know what it is, but something's got to be done because this is not acceptable.
All right. I don't know if anybody else just saw the message come up, but I don't know. We just got a message that says there's a caller. I don't know what that is.
What was the message, Steve?
It's from Brian. It says there's a caller.
Oh, okay. Who is the caller?
The follow-up message from Brian says, I have no idea what they want. So I have no idea. I don't know.
Brian, is there a caller?
There is a caller, Mr. Chairman. Would you like to take it?
Sure.
That's at the board's discretion.
I'm here.
Okay, you're on, caller.
Go ahead.
Whenever you're ready, caller, you're on.
Okay. My name is Barbara Flanagan. I live across the street from 180 Pond Street. And I've been listening to your program tonight. It's been very easy to understand from Mr. Ryder and Miss McKinley, and also the people who have been calling in. They've been easier to understand than the people who keep moving around while they're trying to talk on the TV. But my reason I was calling is that I've been waiting for that last article on the agenda to be discussed tonight, and I live across the street from the person who just purchased the DAV property that I believe should have been returned to the town. That's another issue about the land disturbance permit. What happened to that article on the agenda?
Postponed.
Continue.
Well, when it was addressed by Mrs. That was requested to be continued. It was mentioned earlier in the meeting And I mentioned it just at the beginning of, when it was supposed to come up. So if someone requested be continued, we have to honor that.
And when is it to be continued to?
September 14th.
Mr. Chairman, so that was September 14th at 7:10. It's the scheduled agenda time.
Did you hear that, ma'am?
Yes, I did. I hope your format improves, or at least the people who are speaking into the Zoom meeting can speak up a little closer, a little more clearly.
I think you have some background noise. The TV on?
Thank you.
All right, so, thank you. Anything else from the board? Discussion on, a horrible discussion.
Mr.
Mr. Johnson, I
Chairman,
appreciate. Yes. Mrs. McGinty.
Great. So I'll try to work with the assistant town manager, Steve Sadwick, and see what we can do to improve the meetings. And maybe one, I don't know if this would be allowed, but maybe it'd be possible that the board and the two staff members, myself and Mrs. Cartha, meet in town hall and we broadcast it live, and we still have people call in and watch on the TV. The consultants call in. I don't know if that's an option, or if the consultants come and present and the public still views it online or on the TV so they feel safe. But I don't.
That's all right.
Be allowed? I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds good. What about the petition? Anna? I'm not sure. You're muted.
I'm sorry, what you mean for the petitioners? So
This is
maybe they would be
right?
allowed in.
What you stated, I think that's a good idea. Could burst with Steve and the town manager, and then if we could do that, at least we could have dialogue amongst ourselves during the meeting. We miss a lot doing this. I hate to say that, we miss a lot. But my question to you is, I don't think you mentioned the petitioner as part of that group.
So I was referring to the applicant. So yes, the petitioner could come and present their application like normal. And it's just broadcasted on the TV.
Well, remember,
people can call in.
Yeah. Yep. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't, but I'm not sure if it's legal.
On top of
You have an open.
I'm sorry.
Isn't
You have to talk to town to find out.
this is all mandated by the governor?
Yeah, so
The
right
way the
now-
meetings are, the 6-foot rule, no public meetings, and so forth. This thing is, it's no different than me going to the golf course. The governor mandated this. And you have to go by the rules of the governor of this state. And so the thing is, in order for us to have a meeting, a public hearing, you got to get permission from somebody. We can't just make up the rules ourselves. And governed by the governor of Massachusetts.
Yeah, so that's what I meant, Mr. Chairman. I will look into it with the town manager and the assistant town manager and town council to see what is allowed in the current governor's order So I think that we should leave it at that.
Oh, Eric, you must have.
Thank you, Mrs. McGinty. I'm sure,
With your staff.
I'm sure,
Yes, there are exceptions per town. You just have to meet the certain requirements, providing that staff is separated. But I'll leave that up to Anna and Steve that can make that decision. But I think I agree with you, Vinny. Something needs to be done. I had a couple of texts during the meeting, and people told me that they couldn't hear a word we were saying. And I understand the time we're dealing with, but we also need to think of the petitioners as well as any butters.
Do you use the Zoom meeting, or what do you use?
We use Zoom. I've used Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and they are much better application, my opinion.
Okay.
very good. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Vinny. Steve, as always. Mrs. McGinty? To you.
Good. That's all
Mrs.
I have.
McGinty, we'll leave it up to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that input. Appreciate it. All of it. We have a motion to adjourn.
Chairman.
So moved.
We do now.
On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Delaney,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
thank you, Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
thank you, Mr. Fratelli,
Aye.
aye, and we are gone. Thank you.